Hello. Will Messi's Miami survive Atlanta's third leg? The MLS coaching carousel is in full swing as the drapes were pulled on curtain. And which American player could sneak into Pacha's plans with a big weekend ahead? That and more on Friday's episode of Morning Kick Around. Good morning and welcome into Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favorite country. Coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. Happy to be joined by my morning partner, Mr. Jason Davis. Hello.
I'm glad you could joke, Robert. We got to keep it light. We have to enjoy ourselves. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing here? It is Friday also. And I am looking down the barrel of taking a 3-year-old to Dave & Buster's with his grandparents. So let's do this thing.
Yeah, I was actually, it's funny you brought up weekend plans because I was going to ask you, as a person who is curious about places I've never been, what is there to do in Puerto Rico? So I'm glad there's like real exotic, unique cultural things like Dave & Buster's.
Yeah. Dave & Buster's is a major cultural anchor of what Puerto Rico's got all the same franchises that we have on the mainland. Capitalism has arrived on the island in full force. I think afterwards we'll probably go to Duck Donuts or something. I don't know. Chili's. I still got Chili's out there. I don't know if Chili's is out there somewhere. I think they are actually. No, Puerto Rico's a beautiful place. You know, they're the only national park in the U.S. national park system that is a rainforest is in Puerto Rico. It's called El Yunque. It's beautiful. You should go if you come to Puerto Rico. There's a lot of things. Old San Juan is fantastic with the cobblestone streets and the history and all of those things. El Morro, the Spanish fort, is a time, and people fly their kites on the big green expanse right in front of the fort. You can go get your snow cone. They call it a piragua here, but it's basically a snow cone and exotic flavors. Great stuff.
That sounds delicious. You're making my my tummy rumble already. Before we get kicked off into our segments, be sure to like and subscribe. Morning Kick Around needs the subscribers. Still just crested 350. Need to hit 400 to hit that first 500 milestone. So tell your family, tell your friends, tell your enemies of your family.
Yes.
Like Morning Kick Around. Hit that subscribe button. You can find the show online at mkickaround on X and the Instagram. And if you like to write notes, hit us up, morningkickaround@gmail.com. You ready, Jason?
I am indeed. Write us a note and let's do something big. Let's go.
All right. Pulling back my leg, ready to hit these long balls. Let's go. Long ball number one here on Friday morning, the MLS Game 3 of Round 1. The decisive playoff matches have finally come this weekend with a full slate of games over Friday and Saturday night. Big question is, will Messi's Miami survive Atlanta's third leg?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, certainly Atlanta has proven that they are a tough out for Miami this season. They've made it difficult, especially in that second game. What a moment for Atlanta and the fans and Rob Valentino and Jean de Silva and all of that.
I like the way you say Jean de Silva.
I feel like I gotta lead it. It's one of the few Brazilian names that I feel comfortable adding that little sauce on top of. I can't do the proper pronunciation of Ronaldinho. Have you ever heard that? It's very difficult for an American tongue to do. And the R is never an R in Brazil. It's something. I mean, it's not R. It's somebody else's R. It's a Portuguese R.
R.
He did he had a great moment, ripping the shirt off and taking that team to a third game against Miami and Fort Lauderdale. The stars will be out for sure. Maybe Will Smith will come by. What's LeBron James up to right now? Has he got some work somewhere? Okay, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be there.
Just got sent to the minor leagues. So
I saw that.
There could be some controversy with Bronny's world.
I don't know. Rihanna could she pop up with A$AP Rocky? Who knows what's going on there. I think Miami's going to win this game, but I can't tell you that I'm 100% about it, Robert. I can't tell you I'm like, yeah, they're definitely going to take this. I think Miami advances, but I think Atlanta's going to be tough. And, Tata Martino needs to do this to prove that they're not just a regular season wonder, that they can go win the championship. And maybe it's an unfair measure of greatness that we've set for Major League Soccer teams, right? Nobody else in the world does it like this. Well, Mexico does, but nobody talks about that. Most leagues in the world don't determine their champion through this means. And yet here we are with Lionel Messi and Inter Miami facing elimination.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall when the South American players, like especially the ones that are new to the league, the Messis, the Suarez's, Busquets, like what do they feel like? We already won this league. We're still playing some more. But this game going to game 3 did kind of suit the purpose of like giving Atlanta a big moment, also big.
Absolutely. And needed, right? If you're just talking about the story of Atlanta United and where they are right now. And, we can talk about how some recent developments in Philadelphia might relate to Atlanta and what they're trying to do next, because it doesn't seem like no matter what happens here, unless Rob Valentino goes and lifts in MLS Cup, that he's going to be able to hold on to the job permanently. So Atlanta needed this. They needed a boost. It's been a rough couple years for them. But it's interesting to wonder, and I'm sure some reporter will ask, or maybe it's been asked and we haven't seen it. What do you make of having to go and win this through a playoff instead of winning the league title over 34 matches, setting a points record and all of that? But of course, these players, Lionel Messi with Argentina, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba with Spain, Luis Suarez with Uruguay. I mean, he hasn't won a World Cup like those other guys have, but he's been in those tournaments. Right, he knows what it's like to have your season on the line or your tournament on the line, and have to make a choice about what to do. Maybe throw your hand up and block a shot from going into the goal in a knockout match against Ghana. Maybe that's a thing that you do. I don't
one
know.
Of my favorite all-time World Cup moments, to be honest.
It's incredible. If you have not watched back just that sequence, just the end of that match, because it happens at the very end of the game, Luis Suarez putting his hand up to keep Ghana from scoring. And then, who was it? Asamoah Gyan, Baby Jet himself, misses the penalty kick, and Uruguay goes on to win.
That's one of those things. I remember where I was in Colorado visiting my cousin on vacation. We had like a whole day planned, and I like made them wait till the end of the game. And like, they were like in the car, like honking. And I'm like, just this game's got to end. And then the end of the game went for like another 10, 15 minutes. And I was like, I swear I'm coming to the car. We're going to go, but I got to see this. It was a where are you?
You made the right call. You made the right call for your history as a soccer fan. Absolutely.
Yeah, had to watch that. Hopefully, yeah, we'll see if a moment like that comes up. But tonight, there are other games other than Messi in Miami. We can't say Messi enough on these programs. But tonight, the first of these third games, Los Angeles Football Club, can they overcome the Caps?
Yeah, let me throw something in. I know you've already moved us on. I will mention that Sergio Busquets did not train this week. I saw that in the news. So I think there might be an issue with Busquets, which could be a problem for Tata Martino and Inter Miami. But
he was kind of fading as the season's worn on a little bit, right?
Has maybe hit the wall a little bit. I'm not sure what the injury is, but I think he has hit the wall a little bit in terms of that physical ability to compete. It makes sense. As for LAFC, I would give Vancouver a better shot of beating LAFC in California than I would Atlanta beating Inter Miami in Fort Lauderdale. I think it's possible, and I think Vinny Sartini is a very good coach, and he's going to have a plan here. And this may go down to the end. I could see this being something like 1-1, and we go to a penalty kick shootout, Rob. And then, kind of all bets are off there. Hugo Lloris on one side, and who is the Japanese keeper for Vancouver? His name is escaping me.
It's giving me as well, but he made some fantastic saves in the first two games to keep this going.
Yeah, I do think this is going to be back and forth. Like I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be super cagey the way you might expect in an elimination game like this. I think there are going to be some chances. Denis Bouanga could win this game all by himself on one or two chances. But certainly we've watched Ryan Gauld raise his star level in this tournament, in these playoffs. Yeah, Takaoka is the goalkeeper for Vancouver.
Thank you, Jenny. So if you were gun to your head, what would you say in this game tonight with LAFC versus Vancouver?
I've already been burned by the chalk, right? So Columbus cooked, beaten by the Red Bulls. What the heck is happening there? Could we see two number ones go down? You wouldn't the Galaxy? Galaxy might imagine a city derby as a championship game. I mean, they would have to go across town to play LAFC in their building, but the Galaxy would love that because it would put them in line to maybe even be hosts. I got to check the numbers on points, but I do believe it was Inter Miami, Columbus, and then the two LA teams. So if all three of those top seeds go down, the Galaxy could be hosting an MLS Cup in Dignity Health Sports Park, Spa, and merry-go-round. I don't remember exactly which things it is, but it's many of those things. That could be a big moment for them.
Big Dignity place. Dignity Health Park. Was that
Dignity Health Sports Park, I think is right. I used to make a joke that it was a bank and a spa because those two things definitely go together.
Cincinnati versus New York City FC. Another matchup on Saturday. I think this kind of matchup, home field advantage probably makes the most difference than any other in this. In these series, or at least as far as the layout. NYCFC got it over the line at their second baseball stadium home, but this one in Cincinnati in front of that rabid fan base. Who would you? I mean, close, no doubt, but would you edge Cincinnati with the home field advantage here?
I would edge Cincinnati, but I don't know that this is not more than one goal, perhaps from the penalty spot, that decides it. I mean, I could easily see this being a Lucho Acosta penalty kick goal being the difference. 1-0, Cincinnati moves on. I mean, that's sort of the margins that Cincinnati always plays with, and we shall see. I mean, I think we did get this week Nick Cushing putting to rest any speculation that he might be leaving NYCFC to go coach the Arsenal women, who has been linked to. I think it was my friend Roberto Abramowitz, who does Spanish language radio in New York. I think it was him who posted on social media that he asked about those links, and Nick Cushing shot them down. So we that with that being no longer an issue hanging over NYCFC, could they spring an upset? Absolutely. I'm still putting money, if I was betting, on FC Cincinnati.
You brought up earlier the prospect of a penalty shootout to decide these. I mean, that's some immense pressure there, especially for the higher seeded teams. Like, it's already, almost a borderline flip of a coin in a penalty shootout, but for it to mean so much, I mean, you could, the narrative writers could chalk off, all of Miami's success just by that gets thrown out the window if they're a first round loser, right? So there's a lot of the line. So if it gets pushed all the way to the penalty shootout, that's high stakes stuff.
Imagine this scenario. All right, you've got the biggest name on the planet in terms of soccer, one of the biggest names on the planet, period. One of the most famous people in the world, and a massive boon to Major League Soccer, selling Apple TV subscriptions and getting attention for the league. He has been huge. We talked about salaries this week, Robert, on the show. Lionel Messi, number one, rightfully so. $20 million a year he's making, which, by the way, is, he's underpaid. That's what I was going to say. He's underpaid at $20 million a year for what he's bringing to Major League Soccer. But imagine a scenario in which Atlanta United manages to push Inter Miami to the brink. 90 minutes are up. The game is tied. Maybe it's 1-1. Maybe it's 2-2. We go to a penalty kick shootout. No extra time. No chance for Messi to pull some magic out of his hat, maybe hit a free kick. We are into penalties. And it comes down to Brad Guzan on one side and Drake Callender on the other. And Drake Callender, on the shoulders of a young goalkeeper, Drake Callender, is the entire financial future of Major League Soccer. All of those people. I don't know where Don Garber is going to be this weekend. I don't know if he would want to kind of show up in Miami. Maybe that's a bad look to have the commissioner going to Fort Lauderdale for this game. But he'll be watching, as will everybody at Apple who's got skin in this game. And it'll be on Drake Callender whether or not they go through. That would be incredible drama.
I just thought of something that would ratchet it up. If the winning penalty for Atlanta was chalked off due to Drake Callender's foot being like ahead of the goal line, and how gnarly things could get. for Major League Soccer. Some sort of strange controversy comes up in
You
those
definitely do not want, as much as it might be good for the end game, if Lionel Messi goes through by whatever means necessary. You don't want it to come down to, oh, did the referee give a card or a penalty or some decision made that seems like maybe it wasn't the right one just because it favored Inter Miami and Lionel Messi.
Yeah, Mike in the chat. There you go. Pro will not be making any calls against Miami. I mean, we'll see. That's like a whole game within a game there. This is a ref watch, Fort Lauderdale.
I like it. CSI Fort Lauderdale when it comes down to it.
And the game that probably of these matchups, the game that could probably go to penalties more than any other is the Orlando-Charlotte matchup.
Yeah, that one seems pretty tight. Both teams winning at home, although Charlotte had to do it via penalty kick shootout. I think Orlando's a better team. I think they've got more weapons. I want to see Duncan McGuire do something. I saw a tweet, a post, a Musk somewhere that said an excretion. I saw that something that Mauricio Pochettino is going to be attending that game this weekend. Why that game in particular? Maybe it is about Duncan McGuire, because I'm not sure there are a lot of good center forward options right now for the U.S. men's national team. Ricardo Pepi, Brandon Vasquez, not necessarily banging them in Mexico, and then who? So could it be? And maybe there's somebody else. I mean, think about there are American players in other spots in those two teams. It's just I'm not sure anybody's got, that one's on my bingo card for a national team call-up.
MLS playoff round 1 decisive games start tonight with LAFC and Vancouver, and then Saturday has the 3 games: Miami, Atlanta, Cincinnati, NYCFC, and Orlando versus Charlotte. Should be a fun weekend ahead. Shouldn't forget that it's the USL Championships playoff weekend too, so look out for that. Long ball number 2 here on Freaky Friday. Jim Curtin out in Philly after 10 years.
10 years, a whole decade. Second longest tenured manager in Major League Soccer to Peter Vermees, who still has his job. This feels wrong and understandable at the exact same time, Rob, which is, and I think there are lots of Union fans who are conflicted today. I see our man Mike Thomas is in the chat watching the show. And here it is, right? Long time, wasn't perfect. He was not the problem. But the argument is that Jim Curtin took the fall for a bad season that really wasn't about him, that it was about the roster, about the decisions made, about what Ernst Tanner did or did not do, what Jay Sugarman as owner did or did not do, and that's mostly about just, throwing that cash. You got to throw that cash. How could you be named Sugar Man and not throw cash? That's what I'm...
Sugar Man. You got to give me a little bit of Sugar Man.
You got to throw it out there. That's what this is about. But at the same time, I think if you're a Union fan, you have to recognize that somebody has to go. And maybe Ernst Tanner should have gone, right? Maybe that's the argument. You're just bitter that it was Jim Curtin that went instead of Ernst Tanner. If you're not going to fundamentally change your attitude about spending, if Sugarman is not going to become Sugarman, if he's just going to be Jay Sugarman, well, then you've got to change your approach. Something's broken in the relationship. Something is broken in how this team moves forward. And I could see it as a positive new beginning on some level. I've seen it sort of theorized that this represents a full turn to just being a developmental club and not necessarily being willing to go out and find those older veteran players who could make you a contender via their experience. This is kind of like, let's just lean into the kids and see what we can do with that. And we'll become the machine that pumps out talent that gets sold and brings revenue into the club. And maybe every now and then, if we have enough revenue, we can, from sales, from transfers, we can buy the players that are going to help us be contenders. It feels like, and I've seen some reporting on this, that Curtin and Tanner did not see eye to eye on some of these choices. I've also seen some pretty harsh criticism of Curtin's management of this team this year, that they had the 4th fewest substitute minutes this season, that Curtin seemed locked in on his guys and was unwilling to turn to maybe a new crop of players when it felt necessary, when the results weren't coming. That they've certainly aged, right? It's certainly hardened this group. And instead of that, allowing them to sort of use that experience to be competitive, it's meant this slow decline that saw them miss the playoffs in 2024.
Over that 10-year span, Curtin's record there with Philadelphia Union, 174, 93, and 138. So well into the black on his record as far as getting far more wins than losses. Before we ask what's next for him, with his name, his last name, being Curtin and losing his job, what has been the most fun headline you've read on this story?
Oh, I don't think I've seen any really good ones. I just saw the first athletic story. It wasn't, curtains for curtain, or what was your pun? Something about the drapes.
The drapes have dropped. The drapes have dropped.
The curtain has dropped on Jim's Philadelphia career, something like that. I mean, I don't know. You got a good punny headline for Jim Curtin getting fired, which feels, the curtains are on fire. Oh man, that's terrible too. What are we doing here? Let's talk about what you said about what's next for Jim Curtin, because Jim Curtin has long been a guy, and Nick's throwing it out. This will be good for Curtin in the long term. He needed to move on to challenge himself a long time ago or some time ago. Lots of potential for growth here. That's what I'm hoping, right? That this is the catalytic event that allows Jim Curtin to try something else. And selfishly, I don't know if this is what Jim Curtin wants. Remember, he is a Philly guy, right? He's been coaching his local team. They didn't exist when he played in Major League Soccer. And we can talk about the team that he used to play for and the fact that they've already hired somebody, and maybe they would have liked to have a chance at Jim Curtin a couple weeks back. But this was his hometown team. I think when he turned down the opportunity to interview for Atlanta, which was reported this week by Tom Bogert, that was probably what it was about, right? Not only was he a loyal guy to the team that was paying his contract where he had coached for 10 years, but he's a Philly guy. How do you say, let's leave the hometown team and go coach somebody else? But selfishly, I would love for him to really, really, really shake the bushes and try to get a job somewhere in Europe. Now, I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's like, hey, just throw your resume out there and he'll get hired. Like even at the championship level, right? And Coventry City has an opening now. They just fired their long-term manager. Is Jim Curtin a guy who could get a job at a place like Coventry City on the back of MLS? I don't know. I think that would be a test case for how the rest of the world, especially English football, views Major League Soccer in 2024. And I don't think we're at that place yet, Rob. I don't know that we're there. So I don't know what his options would be, but that's selfishly what I would want to happen.
Yeah, that's a great thought. Jim Curtin in the championship for Coventry, paving the way for American coaches on the back of, getting blood from a stone, as we saw from Mike. And there might be some value in that understanding if minds are open enough to consider what his payroll was and the what he was able to generate from what was at his disposal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were going to go into it, just what he had and what he got out of it, there's a case there, but it all has to be on the other end, what they see as merited. But that would be interesting, seeing Jim Curtin in the championship playoffs at some point. That's a fun thought. Yeah. Just a quick note, Bruce Arena in at San Jose. Any thoughts on that before we move?
Good, smart move for a team that's in a desperate situation that really needs somebody to come in and take control, because they haven't had direction. He's going to be the president or something like that, and Chris Leach is still going to work underneath him, which is crazy that Chris Leach is still in the job at this point after everything that's happened. I think Lucio Gonzalez was a Chris Leach hire, so that doesn't look good on his record. At the same time, there's a sense that, Bruce is more than 70 years old at this point, right? It does feel like you're really not looking to the future. You're really not you're not moving with the times when you're hiring a guy who's 70 plus, even if he does have a track record. He will make San Jose competitive. I can't go any farther than that. I can't say anything more than that, because so much of it, just like we're talking about with Sugarman and Philadelphia, so much of it comes from whether or not John Fisher's willing to spend some money on a soccer team. And I know, he's not going to be getting that ticket revenue, that sweet, not that Oakland was drawing a lot of fans to watch baseball at the Coliseum anyway, but he's got a minor league ballpark he's trying to fill up. And it's not going to, even if he does, there's not a lot of money there. So I don't know. This is an interesting moment for the Quakes.
I had a kind of funny thought. Bruce Arena as the Roy Hodgson of MLS, kind of bring in the experienced gun to get you out of the bottom of the league.
Yeah, he is that. The thing about Roy, though, is that Roy was managing at clubs where if you just stay up, that's success. And that's not going to be the measure of Bruce Arena at San Jose. Even if he improves them and they move 4 or 5 spots up the table, if they don't make the playoffs, it doesn't matter. And maybe even that, maybe just making the playoffs isn't good enough anymore, especially if you're saying you've got control of everything. You are our soccer czar now. You not only are going to coach the team on the field, which, again, at over 70 years old is kind of a thing. He's going to be delegating quite a bit of what he's doing out there, but he's also going to be picking the players, or he's also going to be directing the personnel project in San Jose.
We shall see how that turns out. But long ball number 3 here for Friday, when some spectators of United States men's national team were expecting the international roster to drop for the upcoming squad for the international break coming up next week. They announced that on Sunday, the American roster of players is going to come out. So over this weekend, which American player could put themselves into Pacha's plans?
Well, I think there's definitely this question of why this quote unquote delay. I mean, we've seen the England team come out. I mean, a lot of the Nations League teams in Europe are already out. I don't know if I think I'm probably Mexico's roster is out. I haven't actually checked on that. Canada, these other teams that are playing in Nations League games, they probably already have their rosters out. And here's the United States waiting till a Sunday. Like, who's paying attention to the roster on a Sunday? But this probably has to do with firming up some last minute things. I mean, maybe it's about you don't have to secure release for a player who's already in U.S. international because they have to be released by their club, but you do have relationships and you do have questions sometimes. Oh, the player's carrying a knock, or he's fatigued after playing so many games in a short period of time. And, this is what we went through with Christian Pulisic leaving the team ahead of the game against Mexico in the last window. And that was obviously a friendly. There is some speculation, Rob, that this is about dual national possibilities and just a couple of candidates. Henry Chase, the center back at Stuttgart, his name is out there. Whether or not he might be in, I think the Japan team looks like it will not include him, and he is eligible for Japan. You also have Luca Coglioscio, who is eligible for Italy and Canada. And I think that's the one that if you look at the internet, that's the one that the U.S. men's national team fan base seems to think, based on a couple of tweets, is the one coming and joining the team. That's interesting. He's a winger. So, who's out, who gets sacrificed from that last group if he's in this team? Because what this team really needs, and this is why we talked about it maybe being a thing that Pochettino's going to Orlando or to watch that game between Orlando City and Charlotte, with Duncan McGuire likely to play a role. When you've got limited options at center forward, do you really need another winger? When you've got Pulisic and you've got Weah, and you can bring in a guy like Alexandre, who was in the last group. So I don't know. I mean, it's certainly interesting.
So who would you like? I mean, looking at Luca Coglioscio, who you mentioned could be one of the players that's got a big decision to make, because, playing these games would commit him to one nation or another. Burnley is the team that he plays for, taking on Swansea on Sunday morning. So I don't know if a performance would necessarily play into it, because they would be kicking off right when this game, when the American roster is getting released at the same time that Burnley is kicking off against Swansea. Staying on that roster, who would you want to see of the players that are available, that we know are available? Do you think there'll be any surprises? My mind keeps flittering to the goalkeeping situation. Who actually gets a run out here for the Americans against these games against Jamaica in the net?
Yeah, I don't think anything changes. mean, I hate to say it because I don't know that anybody is comfortable with what's going on with our goalkeeper situation.
Schulte didn't do enough.
I don't think Schulte's the number one right now. No, I don't think that that's changed. I think Matt Turner is still going to be the number one. And again, you that doesn't make us feel warm on our soccer insides because the guy doesn't play when he does play with some rust. He has a little bit of trouble. I mean, the goal he gave up to John Duran was not a sharp goalkeeper's goal to give up. So, and there were other moments in that game. Excuse me, I'm all choked up about this goalkeeper situation, Rob. It's killing me.
You want to see Jason shed a tear, bring up the American goalkeeper situation.
I mean, it's sad that this is where we're at. If there was anything that we're good at, it's supposed to be using our hands. And here we don't even have a guy who can use his hands in this sport that you otherwise have to use your feet in. Goalkeeper is not where I'm focused. I think center back is an issue. I mean, it remains an issue, right? Because you don't have Chris Richards. He's out injured. You can look at a McKenzie. Does he fill you with confidence? You can look at Austin Trusty, who had a decent day in the Champions League against Girona alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. Is he convincing enough for Pochettino? I don't think he was not in that last team, right? The first team that Pochettino called up, no Cameron Carter-Vickers because of injury, but back healthy, able to be called in. Tim Ream. This is the question, Rob.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that why the Sunday announcement is because they're waiting? Is Pochettino's waiting for the result of the Charlotte-Orlando game?
Could be something to do with making sure that your options are healthy going into the week, and rather than saying let's call up all these guys and then Tim Ream went down, or anybody for that matter went down. So that's very possible. Miles Robinson convincing anybody right now. Right. I did an episode of the Best Soccer Show. I'll cross promote here. I did an episode of the Best Soccer Show last night where I went through the possible roster from what I can tell. I mean, it was tough because throwing in the dual national guys who are not yet committed is taking, why spend a lot of time when we can't be sure, but it's certainly possible. But something like what our center back situation looks like is absolutely on the table. And then you go, okay, well, Miles or Walker Zimmerman returning to this team, is that really something people think is going to happen? And then again, Pochettino in this window, unlike the last one, which was a couple of friendlies where you could argue it's a little bit of experimentation, even if he doesn't have a lot of time, he's got to pick a good team. He wants to pick the best possible team to get them working towards his ends. In this window, you need to win these games, right? Maybe we don't rate the Nations League all that highly because it's still new and weird, but they are meaningful matches. They have value that way. You have to beat Jamaica over two legs to move on to the semifinal. And if that's the case, you pick the best team available, regardless of whether or not this is the team you're going to have in 2026.
We shall see. Sunday at 10, we'll find out who is in Mauricio Pochettino's squad list. Please, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe to the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. That is one of the fundamental ways to help us grow this program. 500, the biggest first benchmark to hit. We're just over the 350 mark, so keep on spreading the word of Morning Kick Around. Find us online on the social medias, MKickaround on X and Instagram, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We're going to talk a little bit about dual nats later in the show, but let's come right back in just a second with today's hot topic. Today's burning hot topic for Friday, a freaky Friday, if you will. Theme of the week, dudes getting their old jobs back. And so I want to see, sometimes when people go back, there's an old wives' tale saying, you never go back to a job. But in soccer, there's plenty of stories of folks going back to their old jobs, some very successfully and others maybe not so much. So, Jason, who are your best and worst going back home stories in the football?
Yeah, this is interesting. Going back second bite of the apple, if you will. I do you have a good example off the top of your head? I mean,
So my two top player and manager going back and finding great success are the same team. Manager one, Jose Mourinho,
I know that guy.
two spells at Chelsea, both
Yeah,
wildly successful. And then he
yeah.
also had Didier Drogba. Didier Drogba had two different spells at Chelsea, both very successful. So those are my two top ones.
Those are good. Obviously, the moment is not good for Jose, or it's different, weird.
Yeah. No one told me how bad the refereeing was in Turkey.
Yeah, something like that. He said it's dark and gray and smells bad, is what he said
Oh, I
about
didn't see
Turkish
that
football.
part. Didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Said nobody watches Turkish football because it's dark, it's gray, and it smells bad. That's a direct quote from Jose Mourinho, who also said nobody was watching Turkish football until he showed up in Turkey, which
So
is
he's
about
just trying to get fired at this point.
I don't know. Saw a story today, said he's angling for the Newcastle job, already trying to get Eddie Howe fired, or waiting for Eddie Howe to get fired, I guess is the move there.
I can see that working. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. I actually threw it out there a while back on the old radio show. Thinking, Newcastle, that feels like a Jose possibility. He was recently saying he wanted to take a job where he didn't have UEFA competitions because he doesn't like the UEFA competitions and the way they treat him because he's Jose, and of course the world is aligned against him at all times, which is a lovely way to set yourself up so that whenever you have success, you're fighting the man. You're not just winning soccer matches. Going back, wow. I'm trying to think of any American. Oh, actually, you're talking best. I guess we could go worst. I mean, might as well. His name's come up on the show already. Bruce Arena, twice with the U.S. men's national team. First run, pretty good. Well, pretty good in 2002 cycle. Not as hot in the 2006 cycle, although things were rough in Germany in more ways than just that. I mean, Claudio Reyna going down was kind of a big deal in that game against Ghana. And obviously they had the draw against Italy, and Italy went on to win the title. So, it was what it was. But certainly Bruce coming back into the team post Jurgen Klinsmann did not play out the way that we wanted it to. That was pretty rough. I'm trying to think of
Landon Donovan was a coming back backstory, wasn't he?
Coming back to the national team, or you're talking about the
club wise? Yeah.
Yeah. He left. He came back. He left again. He came back. He left again. He came back. I mean, some of it's about like, I don't know. I mean, you don't really. That's an interesting one too, because obviously starts in Germany, plays for the Quakes, goes back to Germany, doesn't work, lands in with the Galaxy in Los Angeles, and then did leave and come back in terms of his stint in England, I guess, a couple different times. I don't know. Javier Aguirre is getting a mention from Nate in the chat there. He's back with Mexico yet again. This is, I think, his third time in charge of Mexico, which tells you where Mexico's at.
He's the safe hands,
I guess. I mean, he's the guy. And speaking of Bruce Arena and the national team, Javier Aguirre, the guy on the other side when Bruce Arena beat Mexico in the 2002 World Cup and the knockout rounds. So, and Aguirre said that was one of the 2 times in his career he's ever cried. I can't remember what the other one was. I think the other one was probably also the United States men's national team. Wow, you got any good? You got any more?
I've got another good one. Zidane at Real Madrid, coming back as a manager, not once but twice.
But that was always a weird one. Why did he leave? I don't know. But is he back? Yes. Are they going to win a Champions League? Absolutely. Think he's going to leave? Okay, sure. Why not? I mean, he mercurial that guy as a manager. And the only job he's ever had as a manager, right? It's the only thing
I think he might have done Madrid too. He might
count. Come on, we're not counting that. We're counting first teams. Yeah. True. I mean that one. What is he holding out for now? What is Zinedine Zidane? Is he waiting for Deschamps to finally leave France? Is that what it is?
That's what I hear speculated, but I don't know if you can anyone can with any authority can really pin him down as far as what he is truly going to end up doing. His timelines as manager at Real Madrid, January of 2016 to May of 18. So as soon as the season was up, I'm out. Yeah. And then returns again Less than a year later, March 2019, and he gets them through COVID and leaves right after the season in 2021.
Yeah, another one I think you mentioned to me before the show that I just remembered is Cristiano Ronaldo going back to Manchester United.
I don't think that would fall under the best, though.
No, that's kind of not the greatest situation. Although I guess it's hard to say like it's not his fault when he is Cristiano Ronaldo, and sort of because of his gravity, almost everything that happens around him is on some level his fault. But we know that United is a messy club and a chaos factory, and you threw Ronaldo, a chaos agent, into a chaos factory and multiplied the chaos. So
who could have thought that wouldn't have gone well for a team that was getting better, very fragile, and a coach trying to like find his legs, and then you put the biggest personality, that the biggest distraction, smack dab into a vulnerable locker room. I really do think that Ronaldo going back to Manchester United, probably one of the worst decisions, and has set the club back multiple years.
Yeah, I'm thinking now. I'm trying to go through the memory banks here in terms of returns, and it feels like Carlo Ancelotti should be somewhere in this mix too. It's another Real Madrid guy. I feel like he's managed a couple different teams a couple different times. This is there are a lot of managers who kind of do the Billy Martin routine where it's like, yeah, they coach in one place for a little while, go on, do something else. The team's like, oh yeah, we need him back. He comes back, coaches a year or two, leaves again. I feel like in Italy, there are probably several examples of this, through history at Milan, at Juve, those kinds of places where seems to be this one group of managers that kind of just get cycled through every so often and end up there. Yeah. If anybody else has any of these that they want to throw out, best and worst, happy to take them. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know. Getting your old job back. In general, is it a good idea? Yeah. Is it a thing you should want to do?
I went back to an old job once. While the second term was successful, I added quite a bit to my professional portfolio, as it were. But it is difficult because you are kind of go into that building knowing you as a different role, perhaps, and then you can't go into, if you go to a new job, nobody knows you. You can kind of walk in with a clean slate and set your bar of expectations at your own natural level of where you are at that time. When you return somewhere, there's preconceived notions and maybe some old connections and stuff that may or may not be good for your development. Another thinking of my childhood, he was away for much different reason. But the biggest comeback story I remember when I was young in the 90s, when Eric Cantona, after serving a 1-year suspension, coming back to Manchester United, was a huge story at the time, and still is one of the incredible, football lore moments.
Yeah. Why did he serve that 1-year suspension? Do we need to go back into that?
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, Eric Cantona karate kicked, I think they called it a kung fu kick, into a gentleman in the first row of the stands, and people thought that he was going to be gone forever. There might have even been jail time thrown into the mix there. I can't remember if he actually served any or not.
I don't think he went to jail. I think it was suspended, but he definitely paid a massive fine and got in a ton of trouble. In general, players should not flying kick fans in the chest. I think that in general, that's a thing. Don't do that. Yeah,
I lived in the UK at the time, and that was like that blew people's hair back when it happened. And then his comeback was such like one of the most anticipated things I can recall as far as like tabloid fervor. And then of all teams to come back against, he came back and played marvelously, and I think ran all over Liverpool that day on his day of his return there. That was a tough one for me as a kid.
King Eric Cantona. What a story. Yeah. Okay. All right. I like it as a topic. I got to think about it a little bit more, come up with some good ones. I know there are probably some American soccer ones that are out there as well.
Yeah, chat, throw some into the mix. We'll come back to them at the end of the show. dudes who got their old jobs back. Thanks for tuning in. Hit us up with a subscribe. Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. You got to do the like and subscribe. We're chugging along, getting those subscriptions. Slow down a little bit this week, but we got to make a charge. Hit that 500, an important mark for the program. Or reach us and follow us online on social media, mkickaround on X and Instagram. I'm going to have a sip of water. We're going to come right back with today's Culture War. All right. Morning Kick-Arounds, Culture War here for Friday morning. Dual nationals and their role in the United States men's national team. This was a hot topic and a bit of a culture war thing a few years ago, but the conversation is really coming back to the fore, Jason.
I mean, it is on some level coming back to the fore in the sense that there are dual nationals that American soccer fans want to see added to the player pool for the U.S. men's national team. The group right now is sort of thick with dual nationals.
Sure
right?
is.
And it's just the nature of modern life that people move around, that obviously immigration happens and people of different backgrounds get together and have kids. And then they're like, well, our kids can play for two different countries once they become excellent soccer players. I mean, I'm thinking about it. Christian Pulisic, technically a dual national before, and there was never really a sense he was going to play for Croatia, but it was on the table. He could have decided to play for Croatia. It's what helped him get to Dortmund in the first place, that he had Croatian heritage that allowed him to get the European passport and make the move before the age of 18. Tim Weah clearly could have played for a couple of different countries. His dad's country, of Liberia, but, American by birth. Of course, we've got Balogun. Ricardo Pepi could have played for Mexico. I mean, Jedi Robinson. Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of players across our team. Christopher Lund, we just added him as a player. Clearly not just a U.S. eligible player added to the group recently. I mean, we keep going. I mean, sometimes you don't even know about them because a player like comes through an MLS academy or something, and he's just an American. He plays for the U.S. youth teams, and then he migrates his way into the U.S. men's national team. You're like, oh, he's got like a Czech grandfather? I had no idea. And he could have played for, Czech Republic or Czechia, whatever we're calling it now. That stuff happens like on a regular basis. What's interesting is that we are in this moment again where, look, we never, with our national team, I feel like we're probably never going to be in a place, and this is the nature of America in terms of people of different backgrounds, but we're never going to be in a place where it's like, well, we're solid. Like, our team is just good. And we don't need to be worried about whether some young player who hasn't yet played for our national teams, who has been playing for other youth national teams, or maybe hasn't played for any youth national teams at all, chooses us over that other country. What always fascinates me is that American fans get in their feelings about this stuff. And it's not just about the soccer part of it. It's not just about the on-field product for the U.S. men and whether we're going to win more games because we've got this player. It's validation of us as a soccer nation. If a talented player who has options picks us over the other option, we feel better about ourselves. We feel better about our country and our national team. I think Sergiño Dest was an interesting case study in how things turned a bit from previous generations. Because, Robert, you and I were putting together a list of dual nationals, through the years. I mean, it's just off the top of my head. Jermaine Jones, Thomas Dooley. I'd have to, there's a ton of them, right? There's just Ernie Stewart. There's a ton of them. But what was always the case, up until Sergiño Dest, at least in my mind, is that those players who were dual nationals were very unlikely to break into the national team that the other national team they were eligible for.
Yeah.
Jermaine Jones was a very good player and a very good player for the United States. He was never going to play for Germany. He played for the youth teams. He hit a wall. He ran into the glass ceiling or whatever ceiling there was in Germany. He was like, I'm not going to play for Germany, but I want to play in a World Cup. I'm going to declare for the United States because I'm eligible.
Yeah, he got what he wanted. I mean, he had his star moment.
And I'm glad he did. Serginho Dest picked, I mean, again, you can look at the things that have happened since then and go, well, maybe he would have never really played for the Dutch. I don't know. But at the time, they were actively saying, we want you to play for us. We have a role for you in the Dutch national team. And Serginho Dest, weirdo that he is, said, no, I'm going to play for the U.S. I'm going to play for the United States. Why he chose the United States over Holland or the Netherlands, I don't really know. That's in his brain. And again, he's a weirdo. I'm glad he did. It felt different. It felt like, okay, we've actually got something cooking here that a player with an option better than the United States wants to choose in terms of their success, their history, their place in world football, right? Netherlands just saw them beat us in the World Cup last time around. And maybe Serginho Dest was kicking himself about that. I don't know. But he chose us instead of them. And we felt, oh my God, look, this is great. It means we're on the rise. So again, whether it's Luca Coglioscio, who is Italian and Canadian and American, whether it's Henry Chase, who is Japanese and American, and you can, maybe Japan is an example of a better footballing nation than the United States. Really, I think maybe right now they're better, but historically it's not like they're a power. So I don't know if that dynamic necessarily works in terms of like the what Chase chooses is about us as much as or about us being better than Japan or the other way around. But I do think it's interesting, and I do think we put a little too much emphasis, or have historically, on recruiting dual nationals, at least mentally as fans. Like, it's very important to us in a way that sometimes doesn't play out in terms of the talent that the player actually brings to the table.
At the top, I said that it was more of a controversial or a heated conversation with the dual nationals, and I think that kind of is telling of where the fan base has turned now, because the last few years they have the American national team has had success recruiting dual nationals. I think that's one of Greg Berhalter's successes, was the quality of player he was able to bring in from the dual national group of players. It is exciting, though, to see kind of a American eligible players somewhat, rise from the weeds. Like seeing a new American that I wasn't aware of pop up in a Champions League for Dortmund was pretty exciting this week. He's Iceland-born, already switched affiliations to the USA in March 2024. Cole Campbell featuring for Dortmund in the Champions League.
Right. So this is also that thing. Cole Campbell is going to be a U.S. international, right? Because of the way the paperwork works, he cannot be anything else. So we don't have to worry about that part of it, the recruitment part, the panicking part. Got to get him in and make him feel wanted because we want him to choose us. That's already happened. Now it's just about when is his moment to graduate into the U.S. men's national team, right? And that's up to Mauricio Pochettino. And does Cole Campbell getting late game minutes in the Champions League suddenly elevate him to he should be called into our 23 or 25 man roster for meaningful matches? And my sense is it's a little early for that he's just not experienced enough as a professional. But then again, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and it's not like Spain was waiting around. Oh man, Lamine Yamal, he needs 10 more games or something. He's not quite there. He's still baking. Wait until the timer goes off. No, they were like, how old are you? You're 16? Let's go. Help us win a European championship. And it doesn't matter how many games you've actually played for Barcelona. And obviously he'd already played a significant amount of games for Barcelona. My point is knowing when that threshold is, or when a player is ready, and when they are above a player with more experience, who maybe is in a different situation. Maybe they're not playing at a club like Dortmund. Maybe they're not playing in Champions League football. I think that's really interesting.
You'd say of these, newly emergent dual national possibilities, the position of need where it would probably mean the most to the squad and the player pool would be Henry Chase at Stuttgart.
Yes.
He's a defender, and of the screaming needs for the U.S. men's national team, you got to say defender is one of it. So, I mean, obviously, Coglioscio at Burnley, a winger and a forward. can always use more of those. Cole Campbell, a forward, but Chase at Stuttgart, defender, much needed.
Yes, I would be very happy if a talented player, and if you're breaking through at Stuttgart, you're obviously a talented player, decides to play for the United States and gives us another option. That would be great, because when you look at the pipeline, if you eliminate dual nationals who are not committed to the United States from your mind, because you can't know for sure if they're going to play for you or not. If you're just talking about the players who don't have options, who are locked into the United States men's national team, if you look at center back, it's kind of like, oh, there's nobody here. Here's a tumbleweed. Where's Jalen Neal? What's going on with him? Right? Regression. I mean, that's about it, right? And so, yeah, that would be nice. By the way, can I also just make a request? Is there any dual national goalkeepers laying around? Can anybody play for the United States? You can play a decent goalkeeper. Just asking, wondering if that's a thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought of this when considering the topic of misses of dual nationals that American fans were really excited about. And I recall one of the first American related soccer podcasts I was on, Last Word on Soccer, back probably 8 years ago. It was Jonathan Gonzalez was the player I was recalling. The furor of the Mexican American defender. News came out, or some things were leaked to the press that they didn't feel welcome. The family didn't have any contact with the American Federation. I remember there being quite the fervor surrounding Jonathan Gonzalez.
Okay, so I've been doing radio for a while. I was doing the United States of Soccer when the Jonathan Gonzalez thing erupted. I remember having some passionate discussions with Sebastian Salazar about this on the radio. The story
thought it was a bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, so this was a lot about a lot of things. It was never entirely clear, and obviously time and history has told us this story, whether Jonathan Gonzalez was good enough. I think it's pretty safe to say he wasn't good enough. Now, you don't know, in sort of that multiverse way, different timelines, if things had gone differently for Jonathan Gonzalez, would he be a better player today? I can't know that, right? I don't have that capability. I don't have Calvin's box to jump in and see what else is happening in a different universe.
I don't know that one. I don't know
Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes always he had a box, and his box could do many things. All right, you go read up on your Calvin and Hobbes, Rob.
I guess
disappointing, very disappointing today. We don't know if he could have been good if things had been different for Gonzalez, but at the time he looked to be a very talented player coming through Monterrey. In midfielder, I think is what he was. And really what upset people is that it looked like he was going to be good enough to play for one of those national teams, the United States or Mexico. He had been raised in the United States, so there was this sense on the American side that he was more ours than theirs. I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, but sort of this idea that he should be pliable towards playing for the United States because of his background. And if we didn't give him the full court press, if we didn't throw everything we could at him to convince him to play for the United States, then that was a dereliction of duty on the part of U.S. soccer. And Thomas Roggen was in charge of the U20s at the time. I think that's right. And he famously said, I went to Mexico to talk to Jonathan Gonzalez after he had relocated down there because of playing for Monterrey. And it turns out he didn't go. It turns out he didn't actually go. Jonathan Gonzalez also apparently was upset about not getting included, I think, in an Olympic team or an Olympic qualification team, which, of course, we did qualify for the Olympics. As you said, there was some rumblings from the family, didn't feel wanted. This is where I get uncomfortable, right? Because this now has turned this from, is he good enough to play for our national team? Yes, call him up, into we have to recruit any player who shows any spark of promise, meaning we have to send resources and have people with important jobs in soccer in this country spend time on trying to recruit a player who may or may not, and nobody can predict the future, be good enough to help us later on down the road, right? Why is Jonathan Gonzalez more important than a player in an MLS academy breaking through, trying to get into an MLS team? right? Why is he more important? Because he's eligible for two countries, and if you don't spend time, he might play for Mexico. I feel like a lot of this is just let the kid figure it out. Like, is it right for the family to claim that they didn't feel wanted when only dual nationals are going to get this whole recruitment process? A player who's 17 years old, who's only eligible for the United States, is never going to get a call from the head coach of the U20 team before he gets called into the national team. But for another, hey, we really want you for this team. Well, yeah, I mean, if you call me up, I'll play. I have no other choice. But because Jonathan Gonzalez is eligible for Mexico, there's this sinkhole of time and resources that we fall into, and it's odd to me. It is odd to me.
Some other notable dual nets that didn't come America's way. Ventura Alvarado, another one that chose Mexico. Jonathan David chose Canada. Could have come to the United States. That would have been an interesting addition.
Yeah, and I do have a story on Jonathan David. So I think I don't know if people have been really tracking it. He's been Canadian for a while now. He's been scoring goals and playing for Canada very well. The child of Haitian immigrants to the United States, or Haitian refugees, I guess you might be able to put that label on them. Born in the United States, didn't spend a lot of time in the U.S., went to Canada pretty young. Has always felt Canadian. He did get a call. Tab Ramos tried to get him to play for the United States at the youth level, and Jonathan David was always committed to Canada. So that's one of those where, like, I'm kind of glad it worked out that way, that we didn't have to go through this song and dance of, oh, is he going to play for us? Or maybe he's not going to play for he's still not cap tied. Oh, send somebody. You better call him up. Send him a billion text messages. Just let the player decide what he feels is the right choice for him. And it also degrades the purpose of international football, Rob, if you think about it. Right? This is supposed to be a reflection of our soccer identity, our culture, our ability to play, our ability to grow players in our own country on some level. Now, the rules are the rules. And just because you're born somewhere else and raised somewhere else and one of your parents maybe isn't American doesn't mean you're less American. And I'm happy to have Jedi Robinson, and I'm happy to have a lot of these dual nationals. Fowler and Balogun, that thing was crazy, right? When he was in Orlando, we're all tracking his movements and stuff. But if you think about it, right? If you think about what international football was originally supposed to be and kind of what it is now, this is not really just about American soccer. Now it's sort of about American empire. It's sort of about the lure of America as a place for immigrants, and again, our desire to reach around the world and touch every part of it. I mean, some of that is questionable, if you know what I'm saying.
A couple other players that chose other countries to represent from their dual national, completely different situation, but legendary Premier League goalkeeper Asmir Begovic was he decided to play for Bosnia early on, but could have been eligible for the United States. And a player who took a lot of flack for his decision not to join USA, partially because of a game where they went head to head. But Giuseppe Rossi, I remember, was a big deal. Well, American striker from New Jersey, chose to play for Italy, and I think he scored a hat trick against the United States.
You might have. Obviously, Giuseppe Rossi's career marked by injury, so he never really reached the heights that it seemed he had promise of.
But when the decision was made, or at least made public, he was.
I mean, that was a thing, right? That was a big thing. Believe Thomas Rongen involved in that one as well.
He's got his fingerprints in all sorts of things.
Thomas Rongen is kind of the Forrest Gump of American soccer, if you think about it. It kind of pops up everywhere. He's got a movie about him, that kind of stuff. But look, again, Giuseppe Rossi, he sort of is patient zero for all of this and the panic. I mean, you have to be old enough and have really cared about the national team at a time when the fan base was pretty small to have lived through the Giuseppe Rossi panic and craziness. And Nevin Sabata was also part of that around the same time, right? Same time frame.
Good defender.
Yeah, those players, again, had every right to choose the countries to represent they wanted to represent. And
did Subotic not come because of Rongen?
I think that Subotic may have been a Rongen situation. That may have been the one I'm thinking of. Maybe not the Rossi thing. Yeah, again, and this is where I don't like it, because could Thomas Rongen have done something different and we gotten a talented defender to play for the United States? Yeah, I guess he could have. It could have come down to that, but it shouldn't. Like, it shouldn't come down to whether or not Thomas Rongen picked up a phone or went to Mexico. Mm-hmm. Like, it shouldn't come down to whether or not a kid felt a little bit more wanted by one country or the other. It should come down to what that player feels in his heart is the country he wants to represent. Now, I know it's 2024, and I'm not an idiot. I'm not naive. A lot of these players are making decisions based on financial considerations or what's possible for them. In fact, related to this, I once had a heated interview with the president of the Icelandic Football Association.
Oh, really?
This is before Iceland popped up as a surprising, inclusion in European championships and World Cups, right? This is before they went through their golden era. They were still building to that. Mm-hmm. And you remember Aron Johansson chose to play for the United States over Iceland. Mm-hmm. Now he by no means was some superstar, but he had scored some goals in Holland, I think, at that point. Mm-hmm. And so he was on the radar of both nations. And he chose the United States. And the president of the Iceland FA was mad about it. He was angry. He was hot. He thought Aron Johansson had chosen the United States on the promise of making money, and that playing for the U.S. was going to be better, or Aaron believed it was going to be better for his bank account. And he saw this as a problem. He saw this as something unfair. He saw this as something that could be elevated to a grievance with FIFA, if I remember my interview correctly. So, again, did Aron Johansson feel American and choose the United States because he felt in his heart he was American? I don't know. You have to talk to Aron Johansson about that, right? I don't know. Again, the rules are the rules. And since you can't know somebody's heart, you can't hold them to that. Like, do you sing the national anthem? No, you can't play for us. Like, that stuff is really, really tricky.
As a dual national myself, I would have been fielding offers, see who gave me the best deal to see who could win my heart over. I had little speeches prepared and decisions made when I was made those offers, trying to win my heart between England and USA. But
now, see, here's
they'll
the thing,
never know. They didn't include my family into the camps or anything, so I decided to walk away from both.
I wonder. So we are so focused on getting dual nationals who are raised somewhere else, and a lot of them, not all of them. I think Chase, by the way, it sounds very American, but a lot of them, they'll bring an accent. Like, we've got Jedi Robinson, who does not sound American, playing for the U.S. men's national team. Again, he is American, but he doesn't sound like us. And it doesn't. We have we had it where it goes the other way? An American has landed. Like, imagine an American dual national like you, Robert, who gets called up to the England nationals. I guess it has happened. Who's the kid in New England who's gotten a call into the youth teams for England? The Revolution player, the midfielder. Somebody's going to have to remind me.
That's a deep cut for my
which player. Anyway, there is a little bit of this going the other way, where these American raised players are now getting eyed by foreign countries. And I'm thinking about, like, okay, so we've got Jedi Robinson bringing his English accent into our team. If you walk in and you have an American accent in the England national team, is that weird? Noel Buck is, by the way, the name of that player I'm thinking of. Thank you to Japheth Contreras. Noel Buck. Yeah. Because, Owen Hargreaves, where was he raised? Because I can't remember. I know he was Canadian and then played for England because he was eligible, but I can't remember. I don't. And
the English treated him like he wasn't English. That's for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
I think it was mostly playing club in Germany. People just never got over that.
That's probably part of it too. Yeah, they don't like their English players going to Germany for some reason. And every time.
There's an English player who found some sort of South American roots. There's a very English, like, championship level player playing for a South American club right now too. And I remember there's being some good jokes about I think he's a Brummie playing in South America.
Okay, nice. I love those idiosyncrasies of world international football. I like that stuff. I'm like when you're watching a team play and you're like, that guy looks different from everybody else. Wonder what his background is.
Jim Smith is from Venezuela.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's that one. Yeah. I mean, and again, I love this stuff. I'm American. I like the melting pot. I'm for the melting pot. When you see a black player playing for Japan, your brain kind of goes, well, that's not what I'm used to, but I bet you there's a story there. So yeah.
Yeah, Mike Thomas throwing out a good comment, not American related, but the Jamaican national team extremely divided by. I mean, that federation has its own issues, but yeah, going between domestic players or finding dual nationals of players in England and having them come back, and who are you prioritizing has definitely sent some rumblings into that squad.
Yeah, I mean, you've got stories of players being eligible and playing for nations and not speaking the language everybody else speaks. I mean, players that are going to play for maybe your Brummie player is one of these. Playing for a Latin American country and not speaking Spanish has to be a very unique experience, I imagine. In fact, since we are talking, you're a dual national yourself. I am not. I'm only eligible for the United States. I have no options. No one's recruiting me. But my kid, should he become something of a commodity, will have options. He will be able to play for both Puerto Rico and the United States of America. So, let's start the bidding now. I mean, we'll take offers. I want to feel like he's getting the right attention. I know Puerto Rico's not much of a soccer power right now, but maybe he's the player to put them over the top. So let's do this.
All right, American Soccer Scouts, send your emails into morningkickaround@gmail.com. Get your early claims in to the young Davis child. He's going to be a hot commodity one of these days. You want to get your name in early so that Jason remembers, who held some confidence in young Tiago first.
Yep, there you go. I need jerseys with his name on them. He's a size 5 right now. Go for it.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. One of the building blocks for this channel is subscribe. Before I got involved in this, watched things for 10 years, didn't hit the subscribe button. Now I know the error of my ways and how important it is to the creators behind the content. Hit the subscribe button. We will wait on the edge of our seat for the Pochettino's picks on Sunday morning. And until then, and then when we return on Monday morning, everybody enjoy your soccer. Enjoy Dave and Buster's, Jason.
Thank you.